Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. I think Councillor Evans began her speech by telling us that this amendment sought to recognise the concern of residents. But anybody who reads this amendment will see what it really does. It seeks to change a Labour motion opposing this closure by moving a Conservative amendment that refuses to do just that. That's what this amendment does. It says go ahead and close George Carnall. That's what this amendment does. It refuses to oppose it. You know, she went on to say that there needed to be a consolidation of M41 leisure facilities. But residents will rightly be asking, where does this stop? They've already lost their golf course this year. This will be a second facility in short order. You will understand that residents will not take you at your word if you say this is where it stops, you'll have an all-singing, all-dancing centre, and that is that, because time and again you take services from these residents. And it was interesting to hear Councillor Evans acknowledge that it was this council's decision, and that is the key point, because I half expected you to hide behind the CIC and say this was their decision. But you have taken a decision to invest £24 million in our leisure facilities. And Councillor Williams says, and look at the big picture. How can you expect these people to look at a big picture that says, Altringham's getting a new leisure centre, we're taking yours away, and expect them to be happy about that? And Councillor Anstey is shaking his head because he stood up and said Urmston will be all singing and all dancing. Well, unless it's going to be 6 storeys high, it can't possibly swallow the services at George H. Carnall. And furthermore, you know, Councillor Evans called it a merger of these leisure centres. These leisure centres are not next door to each other. If you are living on Kingsway Park, you can walk to your leisure centre at the moment. And we are talking about moving the remaining services, because let's be clear, Councillor Evans said many of the services could well be lost looking at the bigger picture to secure our leisure centres. You will be moving the few services left to the other side of Urmston. This is not moving a few yards down the road. And you know, there was no answer when we heard about the new dance studio and the other facilities going in about squash, where there are 4 courts at George Carnall, but it doesn't sound like there'll be any in Urmston, leaving a handful across the borough, all in the south. And you know, it's really difficult when Councillor Lamb stands up and talks about the need to be commercially viable, when this council is pumping £24 million into those services, yet taking away this leisure centre. Because you're absolutely right, this should be a good news story. But how you can expect residents in this area to be happy that you're taking away their leisure centre when you're spending £24 million on the suite in general? I mean, come on, can you not see the injustice in that from their perspective? You're taking theirs away and pumping millions in elsewhere. I would be furious if I lived in that area, and in fact I am furious now, because you fail to see why residents would be annoyed about that. And you know, it is absolutely the case, Councillor Anstey, whether you and Councillor Wetton say it is unfair to suggest that you did not invest in capital in those leisure centres. Councillor Wetton himself said that what forced the Leisure Trust out of business was your cuts. There was a 7-figure sum each year to propping up, supporting that leisure trust. You cut that to 900,000, then you cut it to 450,000, then you cut it to 0. In other words, you drove them out of business. And it is simple fact that if you believe residents should be happy about this, you have stopped listening. You called us a party of populism before, Councillor Anstey, and you know what? I make no apology for listening to these residents on this, and frankly, you should do the same. You should take action, and you should save this leisure centre. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you.